Okay, welcome everybody. You're in session 5G, military outreach, the why and the how of it all. And I want to thank everybody for coming in. I know that the coming to a virtual conference has been very different for all of us, but this is one of the last sessions. So thank you for continuing to participate, and we saved some of the best for last for you. So I'm going to introduce our two presenters, and then they're going to take over the PowerPoint. I'm going to monitor the chat. So if you have any questions or any thing you want to post in there, put it in the chat, and there will be some opportunities, hopefully, to talk to them. So with that, I want to introduce our two presenters, Barb Koumjian, and I know I never say that right, Barb and Keri Peko. So Barb has worked with Branch, which was the Military Parent Technical Assistance Center since 2015, and loved every minute of it. And she's presented at numerous regional conferences and received a lot of warm collaborative support from parent center leadership and staff. So professionally, she's worked in the nonprofit administration, adult learning and accessibility, and she came to work for PAVE, which is out of Washington State Branch, because of personal and family experiences with hidden disabilities. She learned a great deal about military family life and is now always asking whether a new acquaintance is military connected, and surprising how many folks are. Barb's a constant learner who believes every individual can learn and grow throughout their life and deserves all the best opportunities to do so. So welcome, Barb. Our next presenter is going to be Keri Peko. So in 2005, she founded the first TRICARE approach for not-for-profit about applied behavior analysis and family support clinic in Chesapeake, Virginia. And while managing that business, she assisted clients by providing in-home parent training and advocacy during IEP meetings. And her 20-year-old daughter with severe autism inspired Keri to address the needs of children on the spectrum in her community. She's met with senior military leadership, members of Congress, healthcare industry leaders to address the impact of autism on military readiness. And Keri's family has lived all over the country, but has been able to call Chesapeake home for 18 years. She's currently serving as PEATC, which is the Virginia Parent Training Information Center Military Outreach Coordinator. So I'm really pleased to turn it over to the both of you ladies to talk about the why and the how of military outreach. So you're up.
Thanks, Nora.
Thanks, Nora. We appreciate that. Hi, Barb. I want to say hi to Barb. I don't get to see her very often. I'll say hello today. And hi to everyone, and welcome to Military Outreach, the why and how of it all. We appreciate you choosing to attend this presentation today. Like Nora said, we are at the tail end of this conference, so we appreciate you taking the time to be here with us today. We're excited to provide you all with some very important information about military families, exceptional family members, and how parent training centers and CPRCs can support this very specific demographic. I'm going to tell you a little bit about me because I think it will help give you a perspective and understanding from where I come from. My husband is active duty Navy and has been for 30 years. And next week we will have been married for 25 years. I happen to be from Central North Carolina and he is from Los Angeles. And we have two daughters. Both of our daughters are on the autism spectrum, but at opposite ends. Okay, so you'll have to excuse me. I'm a walker and a talker, and I talk with my hands. So as I go through this presentation, bear with me. But our daughter Brenna is a 22, almost 23-year-old college student, art major, and then our daughter Allie is on the more severe end of the spectrum. She's 21 now, and is pretty severely impaired. We have lived in Chesapeake, like Nora said, for 18 years. And so we've experienced just one single school division, which makes us an anomaly in the military. And we are currently navigating kind of the transition process with our daughter, Allie. Barb, you want to say a little bit about yourself? I know Nora said a lot, but.
I know. Well, actually, they were kind of my words that I provided, but I just wanted to say that, you know, I do not have any immediate family members that are in the military, but I do have a lot of cousins and people in our family that are in active duty. In fact, I have a cousin-in-law who works at the Pentagon, so down in your general neck of the woods. Although I work from PAVE, which is the PTI in Washington State. I live in Vermont because my son and all my extended family live in New England. And probably my strongest identities were raising a child with a disability, you know, so mom. And I'm currently a grandmother, and I'm about to be a grandmother again.
Wow.
So I just really resonate with parents who struggle, because my experiences with what should have been a good school experience for my son were just the opposite. And I really could have used a parent center if I'd known about it. So I really hope that as we move forward, we're going to find that military families all know about parent centers and use
That
them
would be
automatically. That's my enormous goal in life. All right, Keri, thank you. And you can take it on forward.
Okay. So the military in and of itself has its own culture. And today we hope to provide you all with a basic understanding of military culture. We also want to give you some context and background about the roles we play within that culture, which we've touched on briefly already. And as we're all aware, special education is a complex process to navigate, and this presentation is going to describe how the additional stresses of being a military family impact special education, but also how the role, or what the role of special education on the military family is, what the process plays a specific role in service members regarding things like readiness and retention. Lastly, we hope to make your jobs a little easier by providing you with some very practical information about military specific resources and how to find them. Okay. So what is military culture? Many Americans' knowledge about the military is limited to what they've acquired from movies or books, and even, you know, on the news. But few understand the culture and the values, or even the people who make up the most powerful military force on earth. So what do people see in the U.S. Armed Forces that really makes them makes them want to dedicate their lives and their families' lives to military service? What is it about this culture? Like any large organization with a well-established history, the U.S. Armed Forces has its own culture and language and ways of conducting business. And for civilians with little or no personal exposure to the military culture, the armed forces may seem overwhelming or incomprehensible, or throw back to a earlier period in history. But in order to be culturally competent and to understand and to work with and to support those who serve in the armed forces, it is necessary to have a general understanding of the armed forces, of this large institution. For example, you know, we all have a general understanding of what military rank means, and it's not dissimilar to the civilian world, where there's a pecking order in businesses and organizations. But military rank is about leadership and responsibility. As an individual is promoted through military ranks, he or she assumes additional responsibilities for more personnel and equipment and resources, and missions and operations. An understanding of the military family is also required in order to provide assistance based on the needs of their exceptional family member. The military family is often asked to make sacrifices well beyond any expected of their civilian counterparts. And it's important that as parent centers and CPRCs, we recognize the sacrifices that family members are required to make. For active duty family members, the military is a daily part of who they are, and the family is as much a part of the military as the military member. Active duty members are expected to move every 1 to 3 years. And while the military is attempting to keep service members in one location for longer periods of time, the reality is that the needs of the service come first, and personnel change duty locations at the pleasure of the military. Okay. With each move, family members are expected to start over. And that means a new school, new friends, a new job, a new home, a new neighborhood, new medical support, and new experiences. And it really impacts every kind of facet of being. Something as simple, what may seem simple, like pets having to be left behind, or substandard housing, or moving during a deployment, are a few of the additional considerations that come into play for our military families. For active duty service military families, the only certainty is that there is no certainty with each and every day. Okay. So if serving in the military is, all that, why would anybody join, right? I'm sure some of you are familiar with military service, but many of you aren't. And for those who have served or have family members who have served, thank you for your service and for your sacrifice. But for those who are less familiar, maybe you have asked yourself, why would anybody join the military? Here on this slide, you see several answers that are very, to that exact question. My husband knew very early on at the age of, 7, 8, 9, that he wanted to fly airplanes for the military. But he was raised by a Marine who was also raised by a Marine. And so while he admits to military service being a calling for him, it was also very a tradition within his family and part of his Polynesian culture. Some, people join the military to just simply see the world. But there is the stability of a regular paycheck, a guaranteed paycheck, or to have money for college. And the benefits and the entitlements that service members receive. All of these are, considerations or reasons for people to join the military. But why do people stay? Well, for many of the same reasons. People who join the military for the reasons mentioned previously often stay for those same reasons. Service members realize fairly quickly the additional benefits of serving, such as retirement, no-cost housing, tax benefits, and those are just a few. And later in the presentation, we will discuss the link between staying in and having a child with special needs. Some of the challenges our family personally faced are seen on this slide. And many of these obstacles are similar to those of our civilian counterparts. But being a service member family adds a variable that greatly contributes to the complexity and the difficulty of addressing and accessing what we need for our children with special needs. For example, at the very beginning of our journey, our daughter Allie, and that's her, I'm holding her there in that picture. But at the beginning of our journey, I raised concerns about her development at her 2-year well baby checkup in the month of May. My husband received orders in June, and we were stationed in California, and we had to report in Alabama by July. So we had to pack up and move across the country in a very short period of time, all during the time that I was beginning to become concerned what turned out to be an autism diagnosis. And so this demonstrates just one additional stressor military families may experience, but also what other stressors may stem from. It took 7 months before we were able to get her diagnosis, solely based on timing and the move, and was I going to drive from Montgomery, Alabama to Atlanta, or was I going to drive from Montgomery, Alabama to Mississippi in order to see a developmental pediatrician? So 7 months for her diagnosis, to create an IFSP and begin services, only to be told that we would be moving in 6 more months. Okay. So now consider navigating early intervention, preschool, establishing medical and therapeutic treatments under normal circumstances. And it becomes a little more clear how the challenges in navigating things like special education and disability services, those difficulties are increased for military families. Similar to other cultures around the world, the military has its own customs and traditions and language, and very much like special education, right? We have our own language, the alphabet soup of special education, but the military has it as well. And we've provided a glossary of terms as a handout that might help you decipher some of the things you hear in conversations with family members and or their spouses when you're providing support. But fair warning, it is a part of my everyday vernacular. And so if during the presentation I use words or acronyms that are unfamiliar to you, please speak up in the chat box. Somebody will chime in and let me know, I'm sure. And we will be taking questions throughout the presentation. So please make sure you post them. And Barb and I will be switching off in between slides. And so I just want to reach back out. Are there any questions that we can address at this time?
At this point, Keri, Miriam has posted the handouts in English and Spanish, and I haven't opened them, but they may be including the one of the acronym translations. So,
okay.
Oh wait, here's a new message.
Okay.
No, these are the handouts. So nobody's posted just yet, but I will continue to watch.
Okay, thanks so much, Nora. Okay, Barb, over to you.
Okay. Sorry. So, okay, special education and the military. Basically, here we are. We're attached to parent centers, and we want to learn about military families. Our focus as PTIs or CPRCs is generally about special education and the special education system. And you've seen that it's very challenging for families as they move, boom, 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 boom. Keri's right, she's kind of an anomaly in the fact that she's been able to stay in the Chesapeake area for so long. But with all of the processes, for example, she described the process that her daughter went through and her family went through in trying to get a diagnosis set up with an IFSP. Families run into the same situations when they want to get their child's special education services begun, re-begun, re-begun. And we hope that what we get is how you, as Parent Center people, can get in there and let military families know about you and support them in what they need. Every state has at least one active duty installation. All of them have Reserve and National Guard installations in families. States with the most active duty installations right now, California has 41, Florida has 22, Texas has 24, Virginia has 32, and there are a host of others that have multiple military installations. So every parent center has an opportunity to do outreach to this specific population and make a difference. And this includes parent centers that might be in a US territory as opposed to one of our states. Okay. So on the next slide, we've got some data from the Military Child, what's the MSEC? I always forget the acronym.
Education Coalition.
Thank you. Yes, more alphabet soup. We were able to find this current data on this. There are about 12, yeah, that's a lot of military kids. You can see the total there. 1.2 million military attached students of active duty service members. If you include National Guard reservists and veterans, that figure climbs to almost 2 million. Every school division in the country has a military attached student enrolled, whether their family is active duty, Reserve National Guard, or veteran retired status. Now, if you look at the national population of students with IEPs, it hovers around 14%. And we have absolutely no reason to believe that the military is lower in that figure than any other population. So we also do know there's about 168,000 military attached students in special education. And of course, this isn't every single student with disabilities. Many of them may not have IEPs. They may have other educational or health plans in school. So that figure is definitely on the low side. And then if we look at the military's education system, which is called the Department of Defense Education Activity, pronounced DoDEA or DoDEA, it's pretty small compared to what it used to be, but it is worldwide, which is way different than US public schools, but it does have 17 locations and 50 schools in the Americas, and almost 10,000 students with IEPs, 9,800. DoDEA schools are pretty interesting. They're pretty cool, I think. They represent a huge commitment on the part of the military to make sure that their students who are living abroad have a good education. They run through from pre-K all the way up through grade 12. And about 35% of DoDEA students end up switching schools every year. This is because, again, of the military sending families from point A to point B. And here are some other interesting statistics. Between 30 and 50% of DoDEA students qualify for free or reduced price lunches. And about 80% of the school population have parents who got through high school but did not go on to college. 90% have two-parent families, but many of them are effectively single-parent families because the service member may be deployed away from the family. So that's a big hunk of kids in a school system. And if you are in one of the DoDEA states that have DoDEA schools, what is it? I think it's like 7 states in this country. Mm-hmm. There are, you as a parent center can also serve students that attend DoDEA schools. They have a slightly different setup. If you are interested in finding out more about that, we will have our contact information at the end of the presentation, and we strongly suggest you reach out and ask us if you are in a state where the on-base or on-installation school is attached to the Department of Defense.
So Barb, this is Nora. D-Man posted, first of all, there's a conversation about the handouts where they can be downloaded. And so folks, check your chat room. You go to the Whova app desktop. But anyway, D-Man posted that military students with IEPs can actually be larger in population size in some locations based on the services offered at the military base. For example, JBLM, I'm not familiar with that, has 1 in 3 school age children with a developmental disability. I have a suspicion of what that means, but it would be great if you guys could translate.
JBLM is Joint Base Lewis McChord in Washington State. It's one of the largest, joint bases in the country. And it has, because of the various services, military medical services, as well as local medical services, they do send that joint base, those branches of service, and also the Navy out in Bremerton and Everett will send families who have exceptional family members, children and other family members with disabilities to Washington State, as well as there are a number of other states where this is true. So yes, your individual state may have a population of military families where there are more individuals that qualify for the Exceptional Family Member Program. So, and that is the reason why they end up there. And many will try to stay in those locations as much as they can. So I think we can move on to the next slide, unless there's a specific other question on that. No? Well, what does it mean to be a highly mobile population? Well, certainly Keri's already given you some of the so-called highlights of that experience, but every move has challenges for the children. What is very difficult for families in the special education system is landing in a new state and knowing nothing about how that state approaches special education. The names of the school, the State Department of Education, what they call an IEP. They're not always the same. Where can you find the special education regulations? What's the evaluation process like? So if a child in the military on average changes schools between 6 and 12 times before they graduate high school, that's potentially 6 to 12 times that the child is getting reevaluated for special education services. And even though families are supposed to be able to count on receiving equivalent services, we all know that can be a little tricky. So schools do want to reevaluate. My favorite line is equivalent supports and services. They're not always equivalent and they're not always available. Children do have a lot of stress. The military has developed a whole bunch of resources about, helping children to adjust to a move. Well, depending on your child's disability or special need, some children may be having more difficulty adjusting than others. Lack of educational continuity is huge. It's a huge issue. And the lack of services, the service continuity, ditto. And getting used to new medical support and new therapy providers. So none of it's fun. And it can be pretty constant. So finally, if we look at this, and I love the mappy things that that you've think about the families you know that have transferred within your state or your region or area from one school to another, from one school district to another. I'm sure you know, as parent centers, you've run into those issues that the families have brought forward. And military families very rarely get to experience the move in state or from one school in a school district to another. They're much more likely to experience the change that's in the lower map graphic, which shows, you know, the entire United States with a big red arrow going from Virginia up to Washington State. Thank you, Washington State. It's a shock. It's a real shock. And so how do families, you know, what is it that the families are going to specifically encounter? And at this point, I'm going to take a pause and take any questions. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's not a question, but somebody posted that my sister's kids went from Norfolk to Kodiak and then to Florida. So pretty much covering, you know, that, you know, from the humid to the cold to the big humid. So and different cultures, different environments, the whole shebang.
Yes. So now I'm going to pass it over to Keri, and she is going to get into the nitty-gritty on the IEPs.
Thanks, Barb. So just as a reminder that the regulations and IDEA still apply, you know, for military families as they do for any family that moves. So when a family moves and stays within the same school division, the IEP remains the same. Or if you have a family moving within the same state, again, that's going to vary from state to state. And the only reason I can say that is because Virginia is a Commonwealth. And so things can be different if you move from the Pentagon down to Norfolk. And then when you change school divisions from state to state, of course, they're required to provide comparable services. But, you know, again, the parent's definition of comparable versus the division's definition of comparable always seems to be a point of dispute. But those timelines are still in place. As PTIs, this is one of the things that we can really support, one of the areas that we can really support families, because those timelines as they exist in Washington State have the potential to be very different than what we have here in Virginia. Okay, so in the case of a child with a disability, again, who transfers school districts within the same academic year and who enrolls in a new school and who had an IEP that was in effect in another state, the school district shall provide such child with a free and appropriate public education, including services comparable to those described in the previous IEP, in consultation with the child's parents until such time as the district conducts an evaluation if determined to be necessary, and develops a new IEP if appropriate. And that is consistent with federal and state law. Okay, so what we encourage our families to do here in Virginia, if they are PCSing or permanent change station, moving locate to a new location, is to reach out to the receiving state's PTI as soon as possible, or CPRC, to know, to begin acquiring that knowledge that they're gonna need to be effective advocates for their children, okay? So I'm gonna read you a brief scenario, and I want you to just ask yourself this simple question. What would you do if you were a parent of a child with special needs what would you do? A child receiving special education services, I should say. You're stationed at the Pentagon, and you have spent the last 2 years creating, developing, and maintaining a collaborative relationship with the Northern Virginia public school your child attends, one of the best in the country. And you have special education services in place which meet and exceed your expectations. You are then ordered to a new job. It's important to the needs of the military and to your career. But the public schools surrounding your new installation are suffering and simply can't put your child on the same path for success. Would you choose to live apart from your spouse for up to 3 years in order to ensure your child receives FAPE? That's a question that military families who have children in special education ask themselves all the time. Jim Cohen of Forbes magazine states, service members will not wait around until school districts improve. When schools struggle or have difficulty transitioning military connected students from one region to the next, military personnel often elect to spare their families from that hardship, either by serving alone at a duty station or leaving military service altogether. In one recent example, the Air Force is having trouble recruiting faculty and Air Force families to take assignments at Air University at Maxwell Air Force Base, in large part because of the school issues in the Montgomery, Alabama area. And if you remember my story, that's where we were when my daughter was diagnosed. Those 10 months when my daughter was eventually diagnosed with autism, we were stationed at Air University in Montgomery, Alabama.
So Keri, this is Nora. Do you want to hear some of the comments people posted?
Sure.
Okay, a couple of, so you had said, would you consider living apart from your family so your child could continue the services? And I'm assuming the you was the active duty person. So
yes.
So one person said, yes, I would consider doing that. Another person said I would stay, meaning I'm the spouse and I would stay there. D-Man posted that it's a very different, each situation has different consequences because living without a parent also creates significant behavioral, academic, and social problems and the impact on the family. So it is an incredibly difficult decision. I was wondering, do you guys ever track, do you have access to track the data on how many folks do decide to split the family up for this? I don't know how you get it, but
well, I can promise you the Department of Defense has the information on there, and in the military we call them geographical bachelors or bachelorettes, I suppose the case could be, but I'm sure the Department of Defense has data on that, but not as it directly relates to how many of those choose that option based on special education service.
I figured that. Somebody else said, you know, Miriam had said it's a difficult decision, and then somebody else said, Amanda said, yeah, but that's what every military families have to deal with. We have to make decisions that we think is best for our family. So,
right.
Okay.
Absolutely. So I think for the purpose of this was just to give you a perspective of what some families are having to deal with outside of the complexities and the difficulties in navigating special education, these additional choices that have to be made. Okay, so I want to, another little, it's different since we're all virtual, but another little activity I want you to consider is take a moment and look at these maps and think about the schools you attended and their location. How many different districts in Virginia, we call them divisions, but how many different districts or divisions did you attend? Did you go to school in? And for fun, let's go ahead and add where you went to preschool and where you went to college. How many different locations did you attend school? Okay, now let's look at this student whose dad is a soldier. Was your total more than 10 or more than 12? If you're a parent of a child with an IEP, how long did it take you before you could walk into an IEP meeting with confidence, knowing that what you were talking about during that IEP meeting? And then think about, what if you lived in 12 different school divisions or 12 different districts in 26 years? Would you ever feel like you could effectively advocate for your child? I would guess no. I simply went to each of these school divisions. Now you'll notice on this particular list that the 2 in yellow are the same school division and the 2 in green are the same. So it's really 10 different locations that this parent had to learn about special education services. And so I Googled each state's Department of Education to get the first document that is provided for parents to learn about special education in that location. And after totaling all of this is not IDEA, this is not procedural safeguards, this is not Parents Guide, it's one of those. And I totaled 1,500 pages in documents that a parent would have to study and learn and be able to use in order to effectively advocate for their child in special education. Okay, so again, this is just another indicator of why parent centers and CPRCs are so important for our military families, and how you can provide that jump start to families as they are moving to your state. Okay, Barb?
Thanks. And I just think I will mention that in the chat box, I see a big range of schools from 6 to 13.
Wow.
Different schools attended. We have some military connected people.
Yeah.
On here. And Miriam points out that she was in the same school from 1st grade through 12th grade when she was growing up in Venezuela.
Yeah.
And then Jeanette Cordova from P2P of Miami mentions that she's not military, but it took her 5 years to feel completely confident.
Yes.
And that's presumably staying, more or less in one system. So
Right.
yes, we need parent centers. Yes, we can help. And parent centers can help specifically. And there are lots and lots of ways that parent centers can support. Many parent centers hire military connected people like Keri. Parent centers can reach out to the Exceptional Family Member Program staff at installations in their states, and we'll get more into what that program's like in a minute. Ditto the school liaison officers. Again, we'll talk a little bit more about them. You can add military specific materials, target workshops and resources to military families. One of my favorites is, maybe your website could direct military families to all those regulations on special education. That's a biggie. And if you have a way to do so, you can collaborate with local, state, and federal organizations affiliated with the military, or, special needs organizations to which military members belong. And I'd just like to put in a little plug here. The branch, the Military Parent Technical Assistance Center, which was the national military PTAC for the parent centers, our funding sunsetted last week. However, our website is still up, and it is at branchta.org. And we host almost 100 resources on military family culture, military family support systems, how to get in touch with your local installation. We have an interactive map feature that allows you to locate your local military family support personnel. And another exciting news, in sometime this month, the Center for Parent Information and Resources, the CIPR, is going to begin hosting many of our resources, most of our resources, in fact. And they'll be, even though the branch is not going to be continuing, the work continues and the resources are still there. So feel free to check in either at branchta.org or on the CIPR to see what's still available. And you can, you know, these are public domain. You can put them on your own library.
So this is Nora, going back to your point about having something on your website. A lot of the Parent Center websites have some things like, are you new to special ed? Start here. Are you a professional? Start here, or whatever. And it could be, it would seem to me to be fairly easy to say, are you a military family moving in? Start here. And there's a lot of, you know, besides pointing to the regulations of your state, but also to continue to put the branch, you know, the links to the branch and the CIPR ones. And then if you have any special trainings coming up about that, so that you make as soon as possible that connection with the family. And for a lot of them, it is going to be seeing your website. So make it clear and easy to find. So
Thank you. Great plug, Nora. We appreciate it. Okay, the Exceptional Family Member Program. What is it? What does it do? This program has been around for a while in the military under various names. It's now usually known by its acronym, EFMP. It is mandatory for the active duty service member to enroll and put those family members who qualify as exceptional family members, enroll them into the program. Its job, really there are three prongs to the program. One is identifying the exceptional family member and getting them enrolled. Duty assignment coordination, we'll get back to that, and family support. So the EFMP does its best to provide comprehensive and coordinated community support, make sure housing is going to be accessible, educational, medical, personnel services. It is for military dependents that have a physical, emotional, developmental, or intellectual disability that require specialized educational or medical services. And the duty assignment bit means that when a family is enrolled in this program, when the military service member is up for new orders and a new assignment, the family's needs are taken into consideration. Notice that we don't say the family's needs are paramount, because they can't be. The service, you know, the military, needs of the military do come first, but the consideration is given and it is significant. For example, when we talked earlier about in certain installations, you'll have a higher percentage than usual of families with whose children have disabilities or whose family members have disabilities. This is one of the ways that the service helps these families, as they say, okay, you know, we've got 2 or 3 assignments and they're at these spots and the services you need are there. Okay, that's how that works. And then family support is happening at the individual installations. And it is Department of Defense wide. There are some differences between the branches of service, and there are some differences between Department of Defense and a similar post program in the Coast Guard. Now, with EFMPs and parent centers, what do you need to know about the EFMP program? First of all, these are civilian professionals that work for the military. You can develop relationships with them that will mutually benefit your parent center and the military families served by the EFMP programs. Many parent centers that I know of have collaborated on nifty projects and events, including ongoing things like family support groups. They've also, military connected professionals like EFMPs have provided training opportunities for parent centers to learn more about military families. It's important to keep a relationship going. One of the slight downsides of the program is that so many of the civilians that are hired and trained to do this work are military spouses. And as such, they tend to move with their service member. So there may be some turnover in the staff. So once you as parent centers, I've had parent centers that have these strong relationships. They basically tell me, I have a reminder in my system to tell me to contact the person every 3 months or something, because that way you don't call up and suddenly find the person that you knew really well has moved to the other side of the world. You find out what's happening, and you've cultivated the entire office, not just the one individual. And the biggest reason why you want to do this is that they are your conduit to the families. They're the ones putting everything out on their installation social media, and they're the ones with the email lists, and they're the ones that are going to help you get onto the installation to do workshops or trainings. And I am talking post-COVID here. That's, or in, nowadays they're going to let you do that, put up your virtual workshop information. So, and if their relationship's really good, they're going to refer families to you. So this is what we're really, really looking for. Now, EFMP family support, they are the direct providers. They are the most common point of contact for us in the parent center world. Now, the thing is that some people in the EFMP program have been there quite a while. They have solid backgrounds. But as overall in the program, there can be a wide variation in training and experience. And that is another reason why you want to keep a relationship going, if possible, over time. So that's important to know. Now, another key point of contact on your installation is the school liaison officer. They are, again, usually civilian employees. Each branch of service provides school support services. Now, it's important to understand that this individual is not a specialist in special education or children with disabilities. Their job is to be the liaison between the installation and the school systems that are nearby that the military families attend, the children attend. They build the partnerships between the installations and the schools. And they act as an installation's point of contact for everything that's school related. So yes, school liaison officers, or sometimes they're just called school liaisons or points of contact. Those are another really good professional on an installation to reach out to. They're accustomed to helping children transition into a new school. They can also help with homeschooling, helping families enroll and navigate systems in private or charter schools. So they're basically a generalist in the school system area with a special set of expertise. And another thing I'd like to mention is they are the professional on the installations that's going to be most familiar with the military, the Interstate Compact, which is an agreement amongst the 50 states to ease state-to-state transitions for military-connected students. And again, these individuals can be incredibly helpful, but they are not the special ed people for that you would want to know about. So again, school liaisons can come and educate your parent center staff about what it's like to be a military student transitioning and what the local installations are doing with the school systems. They can provide referrals. They can offer resources to families. They can be a conduit or a funnel for the resources. And again, great collaboration opportunities. So, and I know many parent centers where the school liaison, where they automatically refer families who have special ed questions to the parent center. Now, Coast Guard has their own parallel program. It's called the Special Needs Program. The reason it's different is that Coast Guard operates under the Department of Homeland Security, not the Department of Defense. And there are a couple of specific things. The real difficulty is that since Coast Guard installations are relatively small, except in the regional offices, which are attached to an installation, all the special needs program services and the school liaison program services are often remote, and they're not state-based. So this is where a parent center could be really, really helpful. You can contact these regional family resource specialists, and they can put you in touch with the ombudsman, which are similar to the Navy ombudsman, which do a lot more direct outreach with families, and you'll have a nice little communications venue for families in the Coast Guard. And there's another thing, the SNPs, the FRSs as they're called in the SNP program, are sometimes wearing the school liaison hat too. And then we have our family assistance coordinators. They can serve people in any branch of service, but they are hired and organized by the National Guard. There's one in every state. They have a team of family assistance specialists distributed across the state. Sounds very similar to parent centers. And again, you can find contacts for these individuals on the branch website, and hopefully in future SNPR, where you can reach out to National Guard families. And at this point, I think it would be handy to, am I on this slide? I can't see my thing.
That one's me.
Okay, good. Thank you, Keri. Do we need to pause for questions?
A couple of folks have posted things that somebody wanted to know what was happening to the branch, and I'll talk a little bit about the fact that your regional technical assistance centers will be assuming some of those duties and providing training and supports to the parent centers like Branch did throughout the country, only we're going to do it on a regional basis. A reminder to complete your session evaluation. I'll get back to that. My daughter used to be one, the Coast Guard, I'm thinking what they're referring to, stationed in Montgomery at a National Guard. What I was going to say is that the parent centers, and this is part of the TA piece, if putting together a welcome or info, a short welcome or info packet that they just have, that they can give to the school liaisons, that they can give to the any of those key people. This is who we are. This is what we do. This is how we can help you, and make it bright and clear, and just continue to try to reach out to them. It's that one and done is never going to do it. So that's all I wanted to say about that.
I second that, Nora. It is an ongoing task to kind of create and develop and maintain these relationships with the civilian staff who are the professionals that support families through DoD services. So from my perspective, we are in constant contact with our school liaison officers, our SLOs, and our EFMP staff, and we get a ton of referrals and training requests and things like that. So in those states who have larger military populations, and I think it was mentioned earlier, these kind of hubs where the military sends families who have exceptional family members, that, you know, those particular installations and PTIs can really partner well together and work in meeting those families' needs. So it does require some specific effort, and we, you know, I'm certainly glad to help any of you guys with doing that and coming up with a plan on how to approach that. So.
Yeah, and if the materials can show how the parent centers can be of assistance to these folks,
Mm-hmm.
show the value added piece, you know, this is the things that we can do that you might not have the resources or the capacities to do. That's what we're here for. So to show that there's, you know, good thinking behind it and a willingness to collaborate. So anyway.
Absolutely. No, thanks, Nora, for the plug. And I'd just like to raise up one of the comments from D-Man in the chat box, which has been, my experience has been that duty assignments only take into consideration services the military can provide and not the local education services. And the answer to that is yes, that's true. And it's actually rather officially true, because the military goes on the idea that schools are going to follow IDEA, ADA, and all of the other civil rights laws that protect our children from not having the access to, you know, to faith. So, and they sort of have to make that assumption. So this is where the Parent Center provides that pivotal information. Not just, you know, we can help you with specific information, but, you know, call us up and we'll tell you the truth. Tactfully. All right.
As we move forward, there are a little bit left of some additional information we wanted to provide. We want to identify a few things that we think are important for families and are important for PTIs to have kind of a foundational knowledge at the very basic level. We all know ESSA, but we want to point out that there's a military student identifier that is part of ESSA, and it flags children of active duty service members. And so while that information is generally gathered upon registration and it's not required to provide, it does lend itself to data which then drives impact aid. So school divisions which surround installations and school divisions which are impacted by an influx of military attached students, not just special ed students, but military attached students do receive supplemental funding based on the impact that military students and the population has on the local school system. So it's important that, you know, if these school divisions are receiving this funding, that, you know, they should be obligated to have an understanding of our children, right? They should have they should be obligated to have that understanding and you know, who those students are and how to support those students. And that's, you know, what impact aid should obligate them to. Very few teachers and administrators understand how often our children move, or the fact that their parents have been in combat since 9/11, or the inexplicable curriculum inequalities and variations mandated between states. Very few of them understand that. And as PTIs, we can use the knowledge we have to empower parents with those other avenues for advocacy. Thirdly, on this slide, the Military Interstate Compact deals with the challenges of military children and the frequent relocations. It allows for uniform treatment as military children transfer between school divisions in member states. And as Barb alluded to, all 50 states have signed on to the Military Interstate Compact. And we're going to dig a little deeper into that one today. So the areas of need that the Military Interstate Compact addresses are enrollment, graduation, and placement. Under enrollment, the student's educational records, official, unofficial copies can be provided to the receiving school in order for the child to register. You don't have to wait for official copies of transcripts and such in order to enroll a student. A parent can carry in the unofficial copy, and the schools are obligated to enroll those students. It also allows for a 30-day grace period for immunizations or waivers for physicals and TB tests. And the age of children, the starting age for school, the age of children may enter kindergarten and first grade. So if the student is in kindergarten and one state has a cutoff date that it makes the child too young to enroll in the receiving state has to enroll that student. The student was in kindergarten and will continue to stay in kindergarten or first grade. Okay. There's a new part to, it's not signed on by 50 states, but I wanted to include this because it's a piece of the compact that's currently being worked on. 19 states have signed on to this new part for advanced enrollment. So a military child can register in the receiving school division prior to actually residing in the school district. It allows for them to participate in those random lotteries for charter schools or magnet schools, specialized academic programs. You can start the beginning, coordinating IEP and 504 services, register for classes. And it also allows students, it gives them a little peace of mind, right, to know where they're going to school. So this is an important new piece. And like I said, not all 50 states have signed on to that one. I think the last I read, Vermont is actually in the process of getting on board with it. But you can certainly look at the website for Military Interstate Compact under advanced enrollment and get the list of states who have signed on to that. And I can promise you that school divisions know nothing about it. So please, each state has each state Department of Education has an interstate compact person, specialist or whatever. Reach out to them. Also a good point of contact to have at the state level. Reach out to them for more information on how your state's Department of Education ensures that the interstate compact is being followed within its divisions. Things like graduation are also covered under the interstate compact. So for students who are that are on the general education curriculum or participating in advanced placement or honors courses, those placements have to be recognized at the time of transfer. But it also means that the student has moved 6 times and has had to learn that state's history 6 times, 6 different states. That is no longer the case. I have many friends who are, Navy brats, and they have taken North Carolina state history, Florida state history, Louisiana state history, California state history, Washington state history, and in order to get that check in the block, and that can be waived under the interstate compact. Also for the state exit exams, schools have the responsibility to accept any exit exams that were completed and credit given in the sending school, from the sending school diploma or state. And then for diplomas, many of our kids have to move during their senior year. And those graduation requirements vary from state to state. And so the receiving school can provide a student with the sending state's diploma as long as those states' requirements are met. So you see the benefits to definitely our general ed student population, but it clearly applies to our kids with IEPs who are pursuing standard diplomas or whatever your particular state calls them. When it comes to the placement part of the Military Interstate Compact, again, it allows for that program flexibility for our general ed students, but you see here I've highlighted special education services. And it is in big bold letters if you look at the website. And what I am here to tell you today is, as much as I love the effort that these people have put towards the Interstate Compact, it does absolutely nothing for special ed students specifically. Everything in the Interstate Compact defers to IDEA. So there's nothing, some parents will see the bullet that special education is addressed under Interstate Compact, and they'll think, oh, there must be a tighter, maybe they've tightened up on the definition of comparable services, or the timelines are going to work to my favor. That is not the case. It simply defers everything to IDEA or the state regulations to which you're moving. Now, that is not to say that things like, again, waiving of courses or flexibility or shot records, yes, those all apply to special ed students too, students with IEPs. But the language gives the impression that there is a carve out for special education students, and the regulations and the laws that govern their education, and it does not. Another thing that I really love about this act or this compact is that the absences related to deployment. So if the service member comes home from a deployment and the family wants to go to Disney, those absences are now excused. Or if the mom is getting ready to go on deployment and she would like, a week with her kid prior to deployment, those absences are now excused. So I think that is a huge, for us as a military family, if we had had the compact, those types of things would have had a positive impact on our family. And then
Keri, I just wanted to give you a 3-minute warning.
Okay, thank you. And then extracurricular activities, those remain the same. The students are still provided the opportunity to participate in extracurricular activities. So as we touch on readiness and retention, we want to remind you that one of the phrases that you'll hear a lot is recruit the service member. In our case, it's a sailor. Recruit the sailor and retain the family. And the meaning behind that is that we are an all-volunteer force. And in order for people to continue to volunteer serving their country, the military has to step up and provide certain services for the families. But here is a summary, and you can read that in your handouts, but this is a summary of the National Defense Strategy. And nowhere in this summary does it say that the Department of Defense is required to take care of our families. It's not their job. They do it in order to maintain an all-volunteer service. And so while it's very easy for families to be frustrated or angry by the demands placed on service members and their families, we have to remember it is not the DoD's primary mission to take care of our families, okay? And then finally, I want to kind of remind you all that planning for retirement is a big deal for military families, and it can impact educational services, state disability services, and I'm glad to talk to you more about that offline. It kind of gets down in the weeds a little bit about it, but this is a huge stressor for military families and how they continue to provide the support that their exceptional family members require. Okay, Barb. finish us up.
Okay. And finally, and I'm about to do this, we have our contact information. We want to thank you deeply for joining us today. I'm going to put my email in the chat box because somehow when I put that information out there for the slide, I didn't put my email on it. But it is bkoumjian@wapave.org. So I'm going to type this in right now. Even as we speak, I am typing.
And we're saving the chat feature too, so folks can come back later to see it.
That's a huge relief. Thank you, Nora. So anyway, and this is Keri's contact information where she very correctly did put her email on. Please note that. I love that title, Military Outreach Coordinator, yay. And finally, we do have a really nifty slide at the end where all of the resources, you know, the background information that provided us with the data are all listed here in case you are interested. And of course, you can have the PDF of the PowerPoint and you can get those all off of that. We do thank you very much. And I just want to say I am thrilled with the very interactive group that we've had here today.
Yes, thank you all for attending.
And just a reminder again for folks to go back to the HUVA website, fill out the evaluation, please, please, please. And thank you to our wonderful presenters. This was a great session. And thanks to everybody for hanging in for our first virtual national conference. So everybody have a great rest of the day, and thank you, everybody. And we didn't get cut off. Yay!
Yay, bye.
Bye.
We're very happy you